welcome back to Anton's class. This is your human rights anthropologist, and this is actually part 2 to my previous video. If you haven't seen that one, please go and check it out. We're dealing with some very heavy, serious topics here. I'm going to try to get through this pretty quickly because I know y'all have very short attention spans. I'm not judging you because I've been there too. So let's go ahead and get into this. This is a serious topic. If I make light of it occasionally or make jokes, that's not to make light of this very serious issue, okay? I'm going to go through some articles. I'm going to paraphrase, but I'm going to definitely leave these sources for you guys to check out on your own in the description box below. Do not hesitate to go check those out. This is very pertinent information for Nigerians, but for the whole world, because desertification is occurring all over the planet, not just in Africa. And what happens when deserts spread? People get displaced. It creates refugee crises, all kinds of bad. It creates the Fulani Herdsmen murdering people in Africa. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into this video. The other video talked about the problem itself more, and then this video is going to deal with the underpinnings, and we're going to discuss some potential solutions to help mitigate this crisis. Okay, so let's get into it. Please subscribe if you haven't already. I deal with anthropology and very serious human rights issues going on in the world, and I try to bring it to as wide an audience as possible, so we can figure out solutions together. Please go ahead and comment below and let's get engaged. Be respectful though, because you will be deleted. You disrespectful, deletion. So, some of the underpinning environmental issues affecting the Fulani Herdsmen crisis are climate change, if you haven't guessed it already, and overgrazing of the grasslands in the Sahel region of Africa. The Fulani Herdsmen have not practice proper land management, and they've allowed their cattle to overgraze the grassland, which completely erodes the soil and causes the deserts to spread. We don't want that. We don't want the deserts to spread. Who wants deserts to spread? Nobody. Okay? So, solution number 1, stop overgrazing land. You've got to stop. I know it's a symbol of wealth to have a lot of cattle or a lot of sheep or goats. Not anymore. You've got to stop it because you're degrading your ecosystems. I know that's easier said than done, but there are a lot of resources out there, okay? There are governmental resources, international resources, the UN. Fulani herdsmen need to have better land management. And yes, of course, the governments of Nigeria and Niger and Mali and Burkina Faso and Chad, they need to assist in this very horrendous crises. Solution number 2, stop killing people. Okay? This is very serious. It's a very plain, simple solution. You don't have the right to kill people. Fulani herdsmen are running out of land. They're moving into land that is already occupied by majority Christian farmers, and they're taking these people's lives. And the Fulani herdsmen are majority Muslim, and they use Islam to justify the killing and taking of property of non-Muslims, okay? That's their interpretation. I don't know, I'm not saying all Muslims have that interpretation. That's their interpretation of Islam, okay? And it is very terrible, and it is causing the loss of life. Okay, so this is from the Medium page by an Agbamu Timothy Jr. He is a biochemist and environmentalist. Go check him out. And I'm just going to read a brief description of what he said. He said, recent statistics show Nigeria loses 360,000 hectares of arable land per year. Each year, there is an advancement of 0.6 kilometers further south, speaking of the desert. Can you imagine 360,000 acres of arable land lost per year? That's an insane amount of land. Arable land means land that you can farm, that's fertile, right? So 360,000 hectares of that kind of land lost per year in Nigeria. Okay? And then he goes on to say the desert is moving fast as a result of poor land management. There we go with the land management. Fulani, don't overgraze. It is affecting crop yield and vegetation, pushing farmers and herdsmen towards the south, searching arable land. He goes on to say the intrusion of herders results in confrontation, destruction of property, and death as recorded over time. So here we have him really laying out what's going on there in Nigeria with this Fulani herdsman crisis, and it's a terrible thing. Okay, so again, if you haven't seen the previous video, go check that out. That really dives into that. This one, we're going to keep going. And one more article I wanted to draft up here for you guys is about how goats are literally the worst animal that you can herd. Okay, especially in a degraded environment. Goats are so hardy, they eat up every bit of shrub, every bit of green they see, they will eat. Okay, and plants are a very integral part of an ecosystem. They help retain the rainwater. They help maintain the microbiology of the soil. Okay, when all the plants are torn out of the ground or eaten up by the cows and the goats and the sheep, go plant-based, y'all. When all these animals erode the soil, they eat up all the crops, they eat up all the grasses, all the shrubs, it causes soil erosion and intensification of desertification. Stop it. We have got to move past this semi-nomadic, letting your animals eat up everybody's crops lifestyle. Okay? In this 2020 world, in this 21st century world with climate change, we have got to work together and find solutions. And unfortunately, this semi-nomadic, letting your animals eat up everybody's crops is not going to happen. It can't happen anymore. Okay? So, I'm going to post the article there. While I'm talking, you guys can kind of briefly pause the video, read it if you like. I'm just paraphrasing, okay? And quoting a bit as I go along. I'm going to go ahead and quote this part. A giant dust bowl is now forming south of the Sahara in Africa's Sahel region, thanks in part to overgrazing. There's that word, overgrazing. Nigeria, Africa's most populous country, reports losing 867,000 acres of rangeland and cropland to desertification each year. As human and livestock populations grow, herders and farmers compete for an ever smaller amount of land. For each person and animal, the goat population in particular has skyrocketed as the soil has eroded. You see, so humans, what they do, they say, okay, the grasses are gone, so I can't have cattle, I can't have sheep. But guess what? These goats, they can eat every little shrub. These goats are hardy. These goats are ride till you die type animals, okay? So they implemented these goats. And as you can see in this graphic I have here that I got from the website, Grist, grazing livestock in Nigeria. This is a screenshot from 1961 to 2008. You see the goat population has skyrocketed. Okay? And again, that's a signal of climate change and of overgrazing of land because the sheep and the cattle don't do as well. So they've started breeding and implementing more goats. Okay? So, okay. I'm going to go ahead and show a screenshot of this article from the Earth Policy Institute. This is an example. This is a case study from China. Okay, you see, this isn't only happening in Africa. This happens in China as well. It's happening in Australia. It happens in the Middle East. But this one's about China. It's talking about how the Chinese scientists have discovered that the sheep and goats traversing the land are causing soil erosion and desertification. Okay, because when it rains, the rainfall impacts, it kind of compacts the soil and helps create this protective layer, right? The constant movement of goats and cattle and sheep on this land is disturbing the soil and actually leads to even more and greater soil disturbance and soil erosion. All right. So now for the solutions. Some more solutions. I'm going to go to the Medium page again, and we're going to consult with Agbamu Timothy Jr., once again, the biochemist and environmentalist from Medium. And he says that government effort to allocate grazing land reserve was rejected by the Nigeria Parliament. Shame on you, Nigeria. We're trying to find solutions here. And if you guys check out my last video, the Nigerian government has been doing a very poor job of addressing this very serious Fulani herdsman crisis. So they should have allocated some grazing land for these people. That would have helped mitigate this problem. Okay, so there's a potential solution there. Okay, and then he goes on to say in this article, he provides more solutions. He says that sustained public awareness campaigns to enlighten people on how to manage resources, being land, persistent afforestation and reforestation programs. And speaking of, there's the Great Green Wall we're going to get into after this, which is an amazing thing that the African Union is doing to help halt desertification. And then investigate and prosecute herdsmen found that are wanting to serve as deterrent to others, provide securities for communities, and partnering with environmental experts around the globe for modern techniques in combating desertification. So thank you very much, Agbamu Timothy Jr., biochemist and environmentalist in Nigeria. He's provided a lot of information. And we're going to move on because I know, again, that your guys' attention spans are waning. So I'm sorry if I sound like I'm rambling. I'm really trying to present this information for us so that we can discuss this and find solutions. I'm going to skip that one. I'm going to post now. This is so amazing. This is like the most interesting part of this discussion. The Great Green Wall. This initiative started by the African Union that you see here. It's a beautiful thing. It's a very inspiring thing. To summarize what they're doing, it launched in 2007. They are creating an 8,000 kilometer natural wonder of the world. It's going to stretch across the entire continent of Africa. Okay, the entire width of Africa, and it's to help stop the encroaching desert. Okay, and they're planting trees, and it's also providing green jobs. So let me just quote bits and pieces here. Its aim is to restore Africa's degraded landscapes and transform millions of lives in one of the world's poorest regions, the Sahel. Once completed, the wall will be the largest living structure on the planet, an 8,000 kilometer natural wonder of the world. And it goes on to say the Great Green Wall is now being implemented in more than 20 countries across Africa, and more than $8 billion have mobilized and pledged for its support. Have been mobilized, The initiative brings together African countries and international partners under the leadership of the African Union Commission and Pan-African Agency of the Great Green Wall. Isn't that beautiful? By 2030, the ambition of the initiative is to restore 100 million hectares of currently degraded land, sequester 250 million tons of carbon, and create 10 million green jobs. This will support communities living along the wall. And then it gives a list. Support them to grow fertile land, one of humanity's most precious natural assets. Grow economic opportunities for the world's youngest population. Grow food security for the millions that go hungry every day. Grow climate resilience in a region where temperatures are rising faster than anywhere else on Earth. So, yes, let's talk about some of the results. Okay, since its launch in 2007, major progress has been made in restoring the fertility of the Sahelian lands. Key examples, and it gives a long list of examples, but of course we're going to hone in on Nigeria. 5 million hectares of degraded land restored and 20,000 jobs created. Boom. Would you look at that? Can you believe that? You see what humanity can do when it comes together. You see what Africa can do when the African Union comes together and when African nations work together. This is an amazing project, an amazing initiative that is helping to restore the degraded Sahel region. And of course, they are educating the herdsmen, they're educating the farmers on how to better use and restore the land, restorative agricultural practices, sustainable agricultural practices. Okay? And so, yes, that's a wonderful thing. That's one of the highlights of this entire video. If you guys have stuck with me this far, I'm going to talk about this article from Rethink real fast. It just talks about the importance of soil integrity, the importance of the biodiversity of soil, the importance of keeping soil healthy and intact, And this is from rethink.org, Deserts to Fertile Farmland on the Lewis Plateau. This was a case study in China again, where the deserts in China had been degraded by largely animal herders herding their animals thousands of years ago, and it caused the desert to spread there. And now we have this beautiful, lush farmland that they've restored by this incredible project that China has actually done. And the article is very in depth. Of course, it's going to be in the link. It's going to be in the description box below. Check it out. Okay, you guys, please share it. And it just talks about how important it is to keep the integrity of the soil intact. And unfortunately, herds, these large herds of animals, people, semi-nomadic people herding their animals is not a sustainable, healthy practice for the environment. Last but not least, I'm going to talk about, this is an article from earthday.org, and it talks about dietary habits and how shifting to a more plant-based or plant-focused diet is actually one of the best solutions to climate change. And of course, I'm going to use it to the Fulani Herdsmen crisis as well. There are traditionally herders, the Fulani, and I would challenge the Fulani to implement more plant-based eating. I'm not saying for them to completely throw away their culture. I'm not saying for them to completely stop the grazing, but they need to greatly reduce it. Okay, because again, it's not a sustainable practice. We're looking at holistic measures here that bring all the moving pieces into consideration, and adopting a more plant-focused diet is going to be better for the ecosystem. It's going to be better for the Sahel. It's going to be better for the Fulani herdsmen, for their health and for their social circumstances, and for the political crisis, this murder crisis that's going on in Nigeria. Okay? Because again, a lot of it has to do with survival. The Fulani are traditionally herdsmen. That's their way of survival. So they will do anything to graze, to herd their flocks of sheep and goats and cattle, including taking human life, which is absolutely unacceptable. Okay? Let me just make that very clear. But these solutions are potential ways to mitigate the problem, adopting a plant-based diet. Okay? One more thing. Hope you guys are still with me. This is from Civil East, and it gives an example of a kind of a region of the United States that had gone through some droughts and hadn't seen a lot of rainfall due to climate change as well, and how these farmers survived by implementing new strategies like different crop rotations and growing legumes like lentils and chickpeas, also known as garbanzo beans, and they have actually helped these farmers survive and to thrive, okay? Because lentils and chickpeas are the way of the future. They are very nutritious. They're actually good for the soil. They are packed in protein. They're packed with phytonutrients. They're good for your digestive health because they're high in fiber, and they are good for the environment, okay? So I wanted to use this example here, you guys, of these farmers in the United States doing a good thing and growing these lentils and chickpeas. And now they are a very popular plant-based food. A lot of even plant-based junk foods, quote unquote, like burgers, plant-based burgers and stuff, are made of lentils and chickpeas. Okay. So that's about it, you guys. I hope you liked this video. I hope I didn't sound like I was rambling on. I was trying to get through it as quickly as possible. If you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. Please be respectful of others. And thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe. Take care, you guys.